Story time on the time I had to go pick up my sister who went to Manhattan an hour away and didn't tell my parents. So basically, my sister asked my parents if she could go to her friend's house, which was 5 minutes away. So they came and they picked her up and took her to their house. Fast forward 2 hours later, my parents tell me to pick her up and bring her back home. So I text her and I'm like, where are you at? I'm going to come pick you up in 5 minutes. This girl texts me and is like, Mash, I'm not there. I'm in the city. I'm an hour away. Oh my God. And I'm like, you stupid bitch. So I had to drive to the city, which was an hour away, and I had to drive back. And my parents told me to also get my Starbucks drink, so I had to go there on top of that. So we were freaking out in the car because my mom has a tracker on her phone and she turned it off and she called my brother, so we thought she knew. But then when we got home, she didn't know.
Here's a story time of how me and my sisters almost got kidnapped. So my mom and her boyfriend were just going to go out and have a night to themselves, and I was home watching my two little sisters. At the time, I was 13, my two little sisters were 9 and 6. So around 6 p.m., my mom and her boyfriend leave. Me and my sisters just sit down and watch a movie, and then I get up to make them dinner. I get paranoid really easily, and while I was making them dinner, I look out the kitchen window, and I thought I seen somebody in the backyard. I text my mom, and she gets on the cameras that are outside, and she said nobody was out there. I continue making them dinner, we sit down and eat, and then we start watching another movie. Then we start hearing knocking. It wasn't coming from any of the doors, it was coming from the side of the house. I didn't want to bother my mom on her one night out, so I just took the kids, and we went upstairs and watched a movie in my room. My 6-year-old sister at the time went to the bathroom and she came back in literal tears. She was literally crying so hard until I finally got her to stop and tell me what was wrong. She said as she was walking back from the bathroom, she seen somebody downstairs. I quietly locked my door and I put my sisters in the closet and I called my mom right away. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how me and my sisters almost got kidnapped. I called my mom and then she looked on the cameras downstairs and somebody was in the house. She never told me what the person was doing. I guess she just didn't want me worrying, but she called 911 right away. While my two little sisters were in the closet, my 6-year-old sister would not stop crying and I'm pretty sure the person downstairs heard her. At this time, my mom and her boyfriend were already on the way and so were the police. I heard him coming up the steps, so I quietly opened the closet door and promised my sisters that they would stay quiet and be calm no matter what. I didn't know what he was here for, so I hid in the side of the bed in front of the closet so that he would get to me before he got to the girls. I heard him just rummaging through stuff and stuff breaking. Then a couple minutes later, I hear the police sirens. Right as I hear the police sirens, I hear a bedroom window smash. While trying to stay as calm as I can, 3 policemen bust down the door. They grab me and my sisters and take us outside. About 5 minutes after they take us outside and put us in the back of their car, my mom and her boyfriend shows up. About 20 minutes later after he was caught, they did notify us that he was wanted for murder of 2 younger girls and 1 adult male. About $10,000 of our stuff was either missing or broke. Then about a month later when we were capable to, we did move. Nothing has happened since.
Mail Nails Again, Lawyer Edition. My client used to be a criminal prosecutor. Let me tell you one of his crazy stories. So one day, 2 guys wanted to rob a jewelry store. They decided the best way to learn the ins and outs of the store was to abduct the security guard. One of these kidnappers pulled the guard into a van to try to get some info out of him, but the guard fought back. He fought back so much that the kidnapper shot him in the head while the other was driving. So at this point, while being shot in the head, the guard managed to roll himself out of the moving van while the kidnappers tried to flee the scene. While bleeding, the guard crawled to his car and drove himself to the hospital. Part 2 of my lawyer client's crazy story. So to recap, a security guard of a jewelry store was abducted by these 2 men who wanted to rob the store. They took the guard into their van and shot him in the head. I forgot to mention that the guard was shot in the leg first, but because he wouldn't give up a fight, the kidnapper shot him again. So this man was shot twice and managed to roll himself out of the van and drive to the hospital. To answer all of your questions, yes, he arrived at the hospital safely and was taken into surgery. He sustained permanent injuries, but he is alive and well. As for the charges, the case is still ongoing, so he wasn't able to disclose further details, but they are looking at life sentences.
Story time about how a guy bothered me then got into a car accident. So basically I was just sitting in my car waiting for my food to get ready with my brother when I see a guy pull up with this car backing up to park in front of me. He backed up so fast where he almost hit my car. So me and my brother honked at him and we're like, yo, like, watch out, you're about to hit the car. And he gets out of the car and he's like, I have eyes, I can see. Like, okay, you have eyes, but clearly you can't use them. So he goes inside the store to pick up his cake, and my brother goes inside to pick up our food. And by the time he comes back out, my brother's not back out yet, and I wanted to honk at him and be like, next time watch what you say. But he left, and then my brother came out right when he left, and he was at the light, and I was like, listen, we're gonna go catch this guy, and I'm gonna like beat him up. I mean, I really couldn't beat him up, but I just wanted to follow him, like give him the finger or whatever. So I'm driving, and I feel like I lost him, and I didn't find him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no. And then I found him. I saw his car and I went after him, but like for part 2. Storytime part 2 on how a guy bothered me, then got into a car accident. So basically I was following him, and then I finally saw his car, and I was like, yes. I told my brother, I was like, I'm gonna honk at him, give him the finger. So he saw us doing that, and I was like, yes, like I got my revenge. Like I just wanted to do that to him because he was being a whole jerk. So I thought he was turning at the light and he was gonna go on his way, and I went on my way, and I was waiting at the light to make a U-turn to go back home, and I was just like, yes, like that made my day because he got tight, he couldn't do anything. And we're sitting at the light, and I see his car pull up and like next to us, and he's holding his middle finger up and looking at us. So as he's doing that, we're giving the finger back, and he's not even looking in front of him to see if there's another car. So right when he's looking and giving us the finger, he hits the car in front of him. Me and my brother were like, yes, you idiot, karma is a bee. That is what you get, Hunte. So the guy got out of the car and he stopped him, and yeah.
My future mother-in-law is the absolute worst person I've ever met in my life. I'm 30 years old and my boyfriend is 31, and we've been together for 8 months. He's the sweetest and most caring man I've ever met in my life, but the biggest surprise is when I met his mother. I'm a natural redhead, so when we sat down for dinner, she asked me if my parents had the same color hair. And then she proceeds to ask me, does the carpet match the drapes? I looked over to my boyfriend, who seemed equally as shocked, but he didn't say anything. And when I didn't respond back, she said, don't worry, I'll ask my son about it later. She then went on to attack my appearance and said my hair was too curly and I really needed to learn how to run a brush through my hair and think about my appearance more when I'm out with her son. And when I lost my appetite, she told me it was a good thing that I'm watching what I eat because it would be a shame if I got any bigger. This was my first meeting with this woman, and as soon as I got into my car, I burst into tears until I got home. I told my boyfriend I needed some time. He went into apology overload, and this started by sending me flowers to my office every day and leaving me messages. He said he spoke with his mom and promised this would never happen again. With this reassurance, I decided to give it another chance.
Storytime about one of the worst customers ever. I got a new job at a coffee shop downtown. It was my first day out of training, and I would be taking orders and making drinks on my own. I was a little nervous, but excited and ready to be by myself. Everything was going great until this woman came in. She came up to the counter and immediately noticed that I was new there. She said, I'm a regular and come in almost every day. Write my order down and save it so I don't have to explain it to you again next time. At first, I thought she was joking, so I smiled and laughed, but then I quickly realized that she wasn't kidding. She proceeded to order a very complicated drink, which I didn't mind. I was up for the challenge. I made her drink and handed it to her with a smile. Without even trying it, she said the color was off and requested I remake it. When I turned around to try again, she said, don't mess it up this time. It's not rocket science. I remade the drink, and this time she picked it up and looked at it, didn't try it, and complained that I put too much caramel in it and asked if I was trying to make her fat. I remade the drink a third time, doing everything she requested. This time she actually tried the drink and immediately spit it back into the cup. She then told me that I'm horrible at my job, called me incompetent and lazy, and of course asked to speak to my manager. It only got worse from here. Part 2 of the worst customer ever. After she requested to speak to the manager, I went to get the shift lead and explain the situation. He immediately knew what customer I was referring to. My manager went to speak to her as I remade her drink a fourth time. She demanded that the drink be free and that we also let her pick a food item on the house for wasting her time. When we refused, she went ballistic and started screaming that she would never come here again and that we lost a customer. She demanded that we get the owner of the store down here immediately and said that she wouldn't leave until the owner arrives. We told her that she would have to leave or we would call the cops. She continued screaming at us, took the drink without paying, and knocked over one of the displays on her way out. My manager said that this customer complained almost every day, told me I'm doing a good job, and thanked me for finally getting rid of a Karen. I couldn't believe my eyes when she came back a few days later. I was dreading having to take her order again. To my surprise, my manager confronted her about not paying the other day and knocking over our display. He then asked her to leave, but she went crazy again and refused to leave, and this time we did have to call the cops. Ultimately, she left before the police came and hasn't been back since.